Part 27. Build the Country House. As soon as my son got married, I decided to build the country house that I had prepared for a long time to realize my childhood dream. It had been 17 years since I first bought a small plot of land in Yongpyong. I once used the land as a weekend farm, but it was very difficult and uneconomical for urbanites to come farming in the countryside. There is a saying that farmers get angry when office workers say they will go to the country and farm. In my case, when I was tired from the city life, I took comfort in thinking of the land. I tried to find peace of mind by thinking of it when I had difficulties at work. To build a country house on farmland, I first had to live in Yongpyong for more than 6 months to get permission for farmland diversification. I signed a lease on an apartment in the area close to the land and quickly transferred my resident registration. When I submitted my application, I named my wife as the head of my family. The new house was for residential use, but I wanted to make space for my wife's literature. In return for her hard time living with my family, I registered all the land in Yongpyong as her possession. Since the land is located in the water source conservation area, the procedure of farmland diversification was more difficult than in other areas. So, I examined the Building Act, the Farmland Act, the Act on the Utilization and Planning of National Territory, and the Yongpyong Country Ordinance in advance to see if there were any problems in the construction process. I entrusted my acquaintance with the construction of the house entirely. People around me advised me to draw up a building contract, but I decided to trust everything he was doing and leave it to him instead of writing a contract. It is said that building a country house is one of the dreams of most working men. Yet, there were many men who only dreamed of it because it was not easy to leave the city and live in the countryside. Before the construction of the house, I used to look for country houses and benchmark. I dreamed every night thinking about the structure of the house when I received a blueprint that was drawn up by the building office. I finished the process of reporting the building to the Yongpyong Country Office and started the construction. I decided to divert 825 square meters of the farmland for my house. I built the two-story house with floor space of 163 square meters. I wanted to make the rest of the farmland a site for my brothers if they wanted to build houses too. I made only a living room and 2 rooms on the first floor. I made a large bedroom and a study there. The study is a small library of literature for my wife. I made 2 rooms on the second floor. I decided to use the larger room for my son's family, younger brothers, or guests, and the other room as a music room for practicing saxophone. I wanted to use the second floor as a place where people, relatives, and friends could come and have a happy time. I was thrilled to see the construction work started and the forklift working to make the site flat. It was the house I dreamed of since I was in middle school. For a while back, 7 of my family members moved from place to place in a rented room. At that time, I started to dream that I wanted to build a nice house in the countryside and live with my brothers. It was a dream, but it became a reality. In front of the yard, we built landscaping stones and planted azaleas between them. We planted grasses on the 150 square meters along the yard. I planned to do the rest of the landscaping myself. I began to buy young seedlings and plant them in the yard. The cherry tree I planted blossomed that year and grew a few cherries. The cherry tree seemed to have learned how to live early. I also planted plum trees, persimmon trees, and 1 apricot tree. Most of the fruit trees were grafted. Some plum trees were grafted onto the roots of peach trees, and persimmon trees are usually grafted onto the roots of lotus persimmon trees. Few fruit trees grow naturally on farms. Like a graft tree, I thought my family had lived well on South Korean soil after leaving my parents' hometown. I planted sweet potatoes, corns, and peanuts in my garden. I also planted cucumber, eggplant, and cherry tomato seedlings. I pull weeds every morning and evening. There are many inconveniences in rural life, so called the three wars of rural life. However, these days I feel a sense of happiness that I have not felt in my 60 years. That's because I live with nature as I wish, and I can spare some time to do music service. Living my rural life, I am happy to dream of a beautiful world with no more misfortune and pain.